and oh so much more in addition to Niblack. Thank you, everybody, for attending my presentation today. Thank you for Red Cloud for hosting it. And I have lots of spare slots tomorrow if there's any investors that would like some additional information. So why should you take a look at Blackwolf? Well, there's multiple reasons. We're, like many in the sector, quite cheaply valued at these levels, where our value is underpinned by a large polymetallic resource. The property is called Niblack. It's located on Tidewater in southeast Alaska. The current resource is 5.6 million tons of indicated and 3.4 million tons of inferred. However, this is going to change within the next couple of weeks. We are finalizing an updated resource estimate, which will include multiple rounds of drilling subsequent to the previous estimate, including 2 new zones with an initial resource estimate. So this is one of the largest undeveloped polymetallic deposits of its type in the West. We have a good share structure, 40 million shares out, 50 million fully diluted. I'll take you through that in a minute, and a cheap 12 million market cap. Won't discuss myself too much in terms of the talent and enthusiasm, but I will say that I am probably one of the most experienced geologists in the Golden Triangle and in southeast Alaska. It's where I've spent the majority of my career. I know the rocks really well. I'm a third-generation miner from that part of the world, and I'm committed to make discoveries and make projects happen. But probably the project I'm most excited about, in fact, it's the best drill target I've ever seen in my career that we had hoped to drill last summer, but we just got our permits last month, is the Cantu property. It's a 30-meter wide, high-grade gold and silver vein that has never seen a drill hole. And finally, we do have a long-term vision for development, looking at potentially working with other mining companies in a hub-and-spoke mine and milling scenario. So look at these veins here. Maybe we're coming back in a year and you'll say, hey, I remember when Blackwolf came along and they said they'd never put in drill holes into this high-grade target before. I grew up in Stewart, BC, which is just a few miles down the road from this project, and I can't believe that this has been sitting here all this time. And if it wasn't for, and I'll take you through some of the discovery history behind it, in a second, if it wasn't for some old maps that some old timers gave me, it'd still be just sitting there. So back to share structure, 39.6 million shares outstanding. Between insiders, including myself, we have 7.6 million, or 17.6% of the stock. Our 2 largest institutional holders are Delbrook and Crescat funds. Both have about 10% each. We also have a lot of other good institutional holders. Retail, we're in Frank Gistra's office at 3.3%. It'd be nice to light a fire under him and get him a little bit buying into the stock. But we have a very good share structure. We've been sort of trading by appointment over the past couple of months because there hasn't been a lot of news. But we've traded as high as $1.50 within the past 18 months. And we're trading around 25 cents today. So here's the project locations. Niblack is on the south end of Prince of Wales Island, and the hydro properties are located in the Golden Triangle, but just across the border in Alaska. You know, there's dozens of companies that are exploring the Golden Triangle. In Canada, we're the only one in the U.S. So this next slide is called forensic geology, which really what actually led us to staking these properties. My dad was an underground miner and a leader in the north, but also was a student of mining history. And during COVID, I was going through a bunch of his old maps and reports and mementos, and I found this story about these crazy old-timers that were mining glacier ice, looking for very, very high-grade veins of electrum and glacial float near the top of a mountain. And, you know, the Golden Triangle, where there's the premier miner, Bruce Jack, are known for super high grades. There's continuity issues with them for sure, but these really, really high grade veins. They did it for years and years, these old timers. And eventually, in 1937, they found a vein under the glacier where they pulled 330 ounces of gold. That's a lot of gold if it's just like you and me, out of 700 pounds. So these real rich veins that the Stewart area is known for. And then they got the hell out of there. And in fact, that miner that was interviewed in the story, he was killed in an underground misfire working with my uncle, Don McLeod. And so the story somewhat got lost. So it led us to go staking this area because the ice is long gone, of course. And see that map there? An old-timer gave it to me, and this is that Cantu property with the big veins. Mentions 2 aerial tram lines and a 100-foot wide vein on that map. And I was like, yeah, bullshit. You know, you could promote back in the 1920s just like we're doing here today. And we flew over in a helicopter. We followed the cables up, the tramline cables, and there it is sitting in a cliff, and couldn't believe it. So here's the photo of them mining underneath the ice. It's just absolutely wild. Now, they used to open up the back door of that cabin and then go into the glacier. Now, you see that photo is from 2021, but it was the same thing this year. So for all of you climate change deniers, maybe you're right, because the snow never fully melted last summer, and it didn't fully melt this year. So we still haven't got to where they found that vein, but we found a whole bunch of others with really high-grade gold and silver, like up to 7,000 grams silver and 10 grams gold. So it's a really, really cool target. We have 5 properties in the Hyder area, and, you know, as mentioned, we're the only one out of all the different juniors. We're just south of the past-producing Grand Duke mine. Many of you old-timers might remember that one. Copper VMS deposit, Scotty Gold, Brad's here. And we're right adjacent to Ascot, which is developing the Premier mine. They have a few hiccups recently, but they're building a big mill that's actually going to need some feed. My last company, IDM Mining, in fact, I presented, I think, at one of the first couple of Red Cloud meetings with our Red Mountain project, has that project currently in their pipeline. But they're going to need some feed, and our Cantu system is actually, and the adjacent Mineral Hill property are part of the same geological system as 2.4 million ounces of historic production and 40 million ounces of silver, and a current resource of over 4 million ounces. So geology doesn't, and it's wild. You're standing on the border, you can hear them working. There's been no drilling on these properties despite numerous historic occurrences and obviously some really high grade. Now, it's covered by coastal rainforest jungle, so it isn't the easiest to explore in steep country, but I believe we're going to make a big discovery here. And so here's some of the numbers we've been pulling off: 30 grams gold. There's polybasite for you geos here. It's a copper silver mineral that is indicative of the really high grade deposits such as Premier, even Eskay Creek or Bruce Jack in the Stewart area. We're going to have assays out over the next past couple of weeks from surface sampling. We got a bunch of rock climbing hippies out of California that are crazy enough to go down those cliffs and sample those veins. We have some assays, but we're going to have a bunch more. And what's really exciting is there's a whole series of these stacked veins all the way down the mountain. So I wanted to drill this starting back in June. We didn't receive our permits until the last week of September. And so we'll be back out here in the spring to hopefully make a new discovery. Again, there's those veins. Go to our social media channels if you want to see some more results. These look like they're flat line or shallow dipping, which is similar to Ascot's, Big Missouri, or Silver Butte properties, which are slated to be mined. So most of these were epithermal systems that have been turned on their side. And so we'll obviously just sit at the top of the cliffs and drill 400 or 500 meter holes all the way down to the bottom of the valley. So shifting gears, Niblack's still our flagship property. And, actually taking some of the lessons from IDM, one that we have here is, there's a lot of projects that are like it in Southeast Alaska or Northwest BC. They're kind of a bit on the small side. We thought, doing something similar to what Ascot wants to do, hub and spoke, of maybe developing one mill on tidewater that you can process polymetallic ores from multiple deposits. And so we've identified a site, and we're working with one private equity group and 2 mining companies to potentially work together on a central processing site, a central mill. Now, the site we're looking at won't take many of you long to figure out which one it is, but it's a past-producing molybdenum mine that has all of its Mines Act permits and is located on tidewater. So we're looking at maybe working together. Niblac's on the ocean. It's super cheap to barge ore. That's what the aggregate and pulp industries and many other iron ore do. And so we think this will be a great exit. So Niblac's been around they started mining there in like 1902, but through successive juniors that have had it over the past couple of decades, it's grown to a pretty substantial resource. And after the bulk of the drilling in the 2000s, there was actually a graduate student did his master's thesis on this and had a geological breakthrough where, this is an older deposit, it's Neoproterozoic, and it was known to be folded, but the stratigraphy was actually interpreted to be right side up when it's overturned. And so as part of the precise radiometric uranium lead zircon dates, figure that the whole system's overturned, and since it's folded, that reinterprets how you interpret the geology. Like, for example, this synform, where we pulled off some really good holes, you can see them there, 5, 6, up to 10% copper equivalent, was thought to be an antiform, when in fact it's a synform. And it has really opened up the whole deposit. So just backing up a bit here. So where it was thought to be closed, in between, say, Trio and Mammoth there, is in fact open. So we have a whole bunch of targets there that we've determined. Again, we're going to be updating the resource here. There's almost 500,000 ounces of gold. Like, this is a really substantial deposit. And the best thing about it, it's wide. It's up to 150 meters wide at its thickest portion, and the metallurgy is outstanding. So this does have potential to be a near-term copper gold producer. And tons of targets. Dama, in between the Trio and the Lookout Zone, all sorts of soil anomalies. What does the project really need? To be honest, it needs like a 20,000 meter program. Just farting around the sides and doing smaller drill programs aren't going to work. When are we going to do a program that big? When our market cap is higher and we won't dilute out the major shareholders. Like, as an example, if you can read these intercepts here, these are all intercepts where it's wide open for expansion. Up dip, along strike, down dip. It's been drilled as far as you can from the current production size underground workings, which is 1 kilometer long, but there's like 70 meter and 40 meter intercepts of, 2% copper and higher. So it really is a good deposit. Connecting the 2 major resource areas is an obvious priority. And so our next round of drilling we'd like to do mostly from surface, but also from underground. Really, to grow it, you'd need to do, some pretty extensive additional underground exploration. Dama, this has been talked about by different promoters for the past couple of decades because it's pretty cool. It's a 19-meter intercept of 6% copper that was never followed up because there used to be this rule where you couldn't cut trees in the Tongass National Forest, so you couldn't build a drill pad. And my old boss, Garfield McVeigh, I remember when he poured a bottle of scotch down that discovery hole back in 1994. As a fresh geologist working at the Red Mountain Project at the time. And so we would like to continue to drill down dip from that discovery. So why should you look at Blackwolf? Again, good share structure, mediocre yet enthusiastic management. Just joking. A bunch of catalysts, including new resource estimate, assay results, a vision for long-term development, and the potential to be part of, at the risk of using hyperbole, I would write my last check to drill that main target. It really does look that good.